The AmericasDemocrats.org podcast, a project of 21st Century Democrats, is made possible by contributions from our listeners. Want to do more? Go to AmericasDemocrats.org and click Donate. And thank you for allowing us to be your voice. This is AmericasDemocrats.org, the weekly podcast for stand-up Democrats. I'm your host, Jim Cuddy. Emily's List is dedicated to electing women to public office, and Communications Director Vanessa Cardenas says the last election galvanized a wave of women wanting to run. Pollster John Anzalone predicts that Democrats can win back those voters who went for Obama in 2012 and Trump in 2016. And Bill Press talks with Congressman John Yarmuth of Kentucky. Had enough of Fox News, the House Freedom Caucus, and Donald Trump? If you want the facts that you won't get from them or from the fake news sites of the alt-right, then stay tuned. Our sponsor, 21st Century Democrats, works hard to get everyday Democrats involved in returning our party to its roots and to success at the ballot box. Sit back and listen, then stand up and fight. And follow 21st Century Democrats on Facebook for all the latest progressive news. We're glad you can join us. Vanessa Cardenas of Emily's List tells us how the group plans to train more women to run for office and gives us a peek at up-and-coming female politicians in the states. And we say hello to Vanessa Cardenas, who's the Director of Strategic Communications for Emily's List, the progressive organization that seeks to elect more women to national office. She previously was with the Center for American Progress and the World Wildlife Fund. Vanessa Cardenas, thank you very much for joining us today on AmericasDemocrats.org.
Thank you for having me.
It is certainly our pleasure. Now, the day after the inauguration, 500,000 women and others marched in Washington against the Trump agenda. How can that energy be translated into electoral success?
Well, I think that what we're seeing right now is that women are leading the resistance when it comes to what this White House is doing as well as its allies in Congress. And I think what needs to happen is just to making sure that we are providing women a way to continue being engaged at every level, whether it's at the local, state, or the federal level, and also put forth candidates that really connect with them. And one of the things that we are excited about as an organization that's dedicated to getting more women to run for office is that we are seeing more and more women stepping up and saying, I am not okay with what's happening today at the White House or in our country, and we want to run for office. So I think in the long run, the answer is to make sure that progressives don't lose enthusiasm, that they show up and vote when election comes around, and also that we are enlarging our policy bench of women candidates as well as candidates of color and candidates in general that really connect to the issues that voters care about.
Now, specifically, how do you recruit and train women to run for office, especially since so many studies show that almost no one wants to run given the invasions of privacy and the incivility of the process?
Well, I think that we do a couple of things. I think the first important thing to note is that Emily's List does not just recruit women and only train them. We actually provide them the political advice to win. In the 32 years that Emily's List has been around, we actually have recruited and actually gotten over 800 women elected to local and state office and about 200 to federal office. And how that happens is that the fact that we have a large network of people on the ground that really help us identify those rising stars, those women that have the most important quality to run for office, which for us is a real commitment to their communities and a real passion for the issues. So, an example of that I can give you is Pramila Jayapal, who was just elected to the House last year from the state of Washington. And actually, Pramila started out her career as an immigrant rights advocate, and she was executive director of one of the largest immigrant rights organization in the state, and really cut her teeth that way, working with people, learning about their issues, being an advocate, and now she's a member of Congress. And for us, that's sort of the story that we look for: women that are grounded in their community, that have a large network, that have a passion for the issues, and that is how we recruit them. And then the next step is that.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. Oh, no.
No, that's
I was
okay.
going to say that the next step is really providing them sort of the support so that they know what it takes to run for office. So, what we are known for is that we provide a training that's really a 360-degree training where we teach them not just how to go and hire a campaign team that's really going to help them to run, but also give them the tools to learn how to fundraise, how to get their message out, what kind of consultants they're going to need for their campaign, and also connect them to our over 5 million members that really are committed to seeing more women in office. So for us, it's about first identifying the right candidates that have the right sort of background in their communities and the passion, and supporting them all the way through.
We're speaking with Vanessa Cardenas, the Director of Strategic Communications for Emily's List. Vanessa, would Emily's List support any woman who wants to take on an entrenched Republican, or is there a qualifying standard?
Emily's List is committed to electing pro-choice Democratic women. So for us, that's sort of what we're looking for. We were founded to ensure that women's issues are at the center of the Democratic agenda, and obviously the choice issue is central to us as an organization, and I believe to the Democratic Party. So we are here to get more pro-choice Democratic women because we know that our issues are still under attack.
Now, with a majority of white women voting for Trump, what strategies are needed to win enough back over to the Democratic side?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the lessons of 2016, right? That women don't just choose women because of their gender. They want a candidate that really, resonates with them. The one thing I would say, though, is that in the 2016 election, that educated women did vote. The majority of educated women did vote for Hillary Clinton versus Trump. But I believe that the last election was really an outlier. I think that President Trump really connected to voters who were just unhappy where our country is going, and really tapped in a fear that exists among many Americans about the changing demographics. So I think for us moving forward, we just really need to make sure that we continue to energize the Democratic electorate, and that we're putting forth candidates that really have that strong connection and speak to the issues that voters care about. And we also have to do a better job about sort of creating that pipeline of candidates that reflect the communities where they come from. So I would also say that in 2016, while it was heartbreaking losing sort of the crown jewel of what we were hoping for, we also won several races with women that are incredible. But I think for us it was a lesson. For example, Senator Catherine Cortez Masto in Nevada won. She's the first Latina to be elected to the Senate. We had Kamala Harris, also the second African American woman and first Indian American woman in the Senate, that also won her race. As I mentioned, Pramila Jayapal from Washington State, Stephanie Murphy in Florida. So for us, the lesson is that we really need to invest on candidates that have the connections, that are able to speak to the voters on the issues that care about, and that really sort of have a track record of working for their communities. So there is a formula there for next election, not just this year in 2018, but also in 2020.
We're speaking with Vanessa Cardenas, Director of Strategic Communications for Emily's List. A lot of political scientists, Vanessa, say that women now vote their party and their ideology and not their gender. Do you believe that to be true?
I do. I mean, I think, look, electing a woman it was never going to be easy to elect the first woman president, and electing women in general is not easy. I mean, that's why we have the problem that we have, where women are so underrepresented, and women of color especially. So this is not an easy thing. I think that we are breaking new ground, but I think what it is incredible nowadays is that Hillary Clinton did win the majority of the popular vote, that we see so many women stepping up in winning for office across the country. And now with the new energy after Trump's election, we are seeing, again, as an organization, we are seeing an unprecedented number of women coming to us asking for a training. Just to give you an example, since obviously the election day in November to now, we had over 12,000 women come to us asking us about our trainings. In a regular year, we get less than 1,000. So there's this huge sort of energy that's on the ground, and that's really getting women energized. Because one, I think they were heartbroken about the fact that Hillary Clinton lost, but also they were saying that if she can go through this and actually accomplish all the things that she has done, then we can too. And I think that bodes well for our country.
What do you think of the criticism that the Democratic Party's reliance on a base of interest and advocacy groups, like the women's movement, was a key factor in turning off voters in Middle America?
Look, I think, there's definitely, I think, an argument to be made about how candidates are speaking to voters. I think that, to me, the biggest problem is that only half of our electorate came out and voted. That's I think, the first problem. We need to make sure that, we are engaging a broader swath of the electorate, and we need. I think voters in general are disillusioned about our political system, and we need to change that. I think the narrative that too often comes out of Washington, and the narrative that sort of permeates across the country, is this narrative that government doesn't work, that nobody's looking out for sort of the average American interest, and that needs to change. And I think the way to do that is to really just continue making sure that we are educating voters, that we are enlarging the electorate, that we're bringing young people in sort of the voting booth, that we're bringing different communities in the voting booth, but we're also speaking to their issues, and we're really also giving them, I think, tangible ideas on how to improve their daily lives. And I think on the women that we have seen that won, they are the ones that are doing that. They are bringing new communities into the political process. They are energizing them with their enthusiasm, but also with the fact that they have done the work on the ground. So I think it's a combination of all of those factors. And this is not easy. Democracy is not easy. It's about really going out there and really, I think, projecting solutions that resonate with voters, and making sure that the party itself reflects the communities that we are trying to connect with.
Okay. Vanessa Cardenas, the Director of Strategic Communications for Emily's List, joining us today on americasdemocrats.org. Vanessa, we do appreciate your time with us and look forward to having you back again soon.
Thank you. This was great.
You are quite welcome. And this is americasdemocrats.org, the weekly podcast for stand-up Democrats. We want you to sit back and listen to this americasdemocrats.org podcast, a project of 21st Century Democrats. But we need you to stand up and fight. Do you want to get involved and help get our party back to its roots and to success at the ballot box? You can make your contribution to help us keep this show going and to elect Democrats who will stand up for democratic principles. Go to americasdemocrats.org and click on Donate at the top of the page.
This Social Security measure, I believe that we must pass legislation to provide medical care.
This is our tradition. When our grandparents came to America, it was the Democratic Party which said, welcome. It was the Democratic Party, the party of Roosevelt and Truman and Kennedy and others, who said that America belonged to all its people, not just a handful of the rich or a few giant corporations. That's why great leaders like FDR fought so hard for Social Security, and why JFK stood up to the insurance companies and their Republican allies to get Medicare. It's not just one thing, or one time, in one place. It's about a whole history of standing up to the Republicans and saying someone has to be on the side of regular working people in America, whether it's defending Social Security or just the way your loved ones are treated on the job. That's what the Democratic Party is all about. And that's why this message has been brought to you by the Democratic Party. Working people like you and me.
Paid for by 21st Century Democrats. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. This is americasdemocrats.org, the weekly podcast for stand-up Democrats. Clinton pollster John Anzalone has some thoughts about how Democrats can expand the electoral map in 2020, perhaps in Georgia and Arizona. We'll talk to him about that in just a moment. But right now we turn to Jim Hightower, America's #1 populist, for his common sense commentary.
What's the matter with these people? The Trumpsters in the White House and Congress, I mean. Start with the Donald himself. What's wrong with him that he would require the top officials of his government to humiliate themselves publicly, making them try to outdo each other in a groveling worship-a-thon of praise for his magnificence? On June 12th, at the first meeting of his full cabinet, including the Vice President, Treasury Secretary, Secretary of State, and all the other supposedly powerful luminaries of the government of the United States of America, all were called upon to say their name, then meekly offered their smarmiest praise of Trump's integrity, agenda, and manly leadership. He even had it televised. This spectacle of forced adulation of the leader was so eerily insane that even North Korea's Kim Jong-un would have been too embarrassed to orchestrate it. Yet Trump wasn't satiated by superlatives from his cabinet of sycophants. Instead, he publicly stroked his own ego with the fanciful claim that Americans are, quote, seeing amazing results from his presidency. Shifting into overdrive, the chief proclaimed that, quote, never has there been a president, except maybe FDR, who passed more legislation, who's done more things than what we've done. No, Mr. President, not actually, not even close. I realize you don't believe in facts, but here's one to sober you up. The Trump White House has produced no major legislation. None. Zero. This is Jim Hightower saying, you're right, however, that we Americans are seeing truly amazing results from your 6 months on the job. We're amazed that in such a short time, your so-called presidency is mired in conflicts of interest, constitutional quagmires, erratic behavior, ideological arrogance, and tweeted ignorance, lame policy proposals, and, let's admit the obvious, your own incompetence.
Need an antidote to the progressive blues? Want some good news about how grassroots folks are rebelling against the corporate powers and winning? Well, here's an easy-to-swallow pill for you, the Hightower Lowdown. Hightower's monthly newsletter will give you the lowdown, even as it lifts you up. It's 4 pages a month, jam-packed with facts you can use, actions you can take, and Jim's own Texas humor, all for only $15 a year. To become a lowdowner, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
This is americasdemocrats.org, the weekly podcast for stand-up Democrats. Democratic pollster John Anzalone explains how the Clinton campaign over-relied on data and how the Democrats can reclaim those who voted for Obama and Trump. And we say hello to John Anzalone, who has over 25 years of polling experience helping candidates, associations, corporations with message development and strategic planning. In the last decade, John has helped beat more incumbent Republicans and take back more Republican seats than any other polling firm in the nation. John Anzalone, thanks very much for joining us today on americasdemocrats.org.
Thanks for having me.
Always nice to have you. You worked on both the Obama presidential campaigns and then for Hillary. How do you account for the large number of Obama voters who then went for Trump? I mean, can we get them back?
Yeah, I think we can get them back. And I wouldn't call them large. Listen, we lost this race on the margins. When you add up the votes, in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, it's a small universe of voter, and it hurts. But the reality is those people who had voted for Obama and voted for Trump are small, but it's small enough to move it one way or the other. And I do think that we can get them. But I think more importantly in the short term, especially for the 2008 midterm elections, what we need to be focusing on is not just that sliver of universe that voted for Obama and Trump, but more importantly, those people who don't normally vote in midterm elections, who we need to get out to vote in 2018. And there seems to be evidence that, again, there's kind of a anger or excitement, however you want to put it, a need to voice displeasure with President Donald Trump. And in the special election down in Georgia 6, the primary, 25% of voters had never voted in a midterm election. And those are our voters disproportionately, about 60% to 40%. And so there's something happening out there right now, and that means that we could be changing the math in 2018, and that's what we should be focused on.
And although it is early in his presidency, what does your current polling tell you about Trump's popularity or lack thereof?
I think that we have to be careful about just looking at traditional measures on Trump. I mean, things like popularity and job rating is usually what we take a look at. That can be deceiving. I mean, people don't like his behavior and his demeanor. They don't like how he acts. They don't like that he tweets. But oftentimes, those same people who kind of voice that type of displeasure with him are also with him on most of his issues, and they like the fact that he's a change agent, and they, unfortunately give him some credit for a booming stock market and saving some jobs. So, like we saw through the 2016 campaign, this guy is tough to get a beat on in traditional research. And so you have to do other kind of measures and just make sure you're understanding him at a very granular level with voters. And like any president, whether it's Democrat or Republican, this early on, those people who voted for him, even if they voted for Obama in 2012, tend to give him some time. They want to give him a little time to see what's going on. But there, in the long run, I think some real opportunities to peel off, voters who voted for him. It's just going to take some time.
Mm-hmm. We're speaking with John Anzalone, partner with ALG Research, public opinion research firm. Republicans under Karl Rove ran campaigns that were aimed entirely at their base with the goal of winning 50% plus one. Why didn't that work for Hillary Clinton?
Well, I think that, we were in such a different environment than George Bush was, for example, in re-election in 2004 with someone like John Kerry. These were two candidates, Bush and Kerry, quite frankly, pretty darn boring compared to Trump and Clinton. And Trump and Clinton, elicited a lot of intensity, mostly on the negative side. And therefore, we were just in a much, again, different environment. We saw things break dramatically for the change agent, Trump, at the very end. And quite frankly, back in 2004, you weren't seeing, Kerry or Bush as some, driver of change.
Some criticism of the Clinton campaign is about its over-reliance on the kind of data that helped Obama win the presidency and a lack of retail campaigning. As a data guy, do you disagree with that?
Well, listen, I think that the importance going forward and what we've probably learned from 2012, which I was part of the Obama campaign polling for them in battleground states and naturally a part of the Hillary Clinton campaign in 2016, is that there is real value in traditional polling, public opinion research, message development, working hand in hand with big data, which is analytics, which is much newer and filled with more kind of younger people who didn't grow up in the traditional polling industry. So I think that the goal and the challenge is for those two industries to work hand in hand, so we're not missing anything. But they're both valuable. They both bring a lot to the table in traditional campaigns and modern campaigns, but they have to work hand in hand.
Mm-hmm. Now, Trump voters, are you finding that even among them, there's not really a lot of interest in repealing Obamacare, defunding Planned Parenthood, and building that wall?
Actually, what we found is that when you take a look, and we just did a major national study, a couple of them, matter of fact, with Obama-Trump voters, one of their biggest concerns at the time that we did it was repealing Obamacare. And so there were vulnerabilities there for Trump and Trump voters who voted for Obama about that. The other issues that concerned them was defunding Planned Parenthood and that there would be a tax reform bill that kind of left them out and only helped the rich. So those three issues are actually a difficult territory for Trump. And, he's kind of waded in those dangerously, as we've seen in the first vote for the health care bill. So there are caution signs for him with those voters. Things like the wall, although people don't think that, quite frankly, that they don't want to spend money for it because they don't think it's going to work. But it's not a huge voting issue like the other three issues that I talked about.
Mm-hmm. We're speaking with John Anzalone, partner with ALG Research, the public opinion research firm. And John, much has been written about gerrymandering and the unfairness of the Electoral College. But isn't the problem for progressives, Democrats in general, a geographical one, where the Democratic voters live?
Well, listen, it depends on the year, right? I mean, I think that might be, we're trying to get an out there. I mean, I think that we have real opportunities to expand the map, even though the map restricted this time. You saw Obama expanding the map in 2008 in places like North Carolina and Indiana. In 2020, I think Georgia and Arizona are real opportunities for us. So it just kind of depends on the year, on the candidate, on the political environment. But the fact is that Florida, even though it was lost in 2016, is going to be very, very competitive every time. North Carolina is going to be competitive every time. When you take a look at the margins in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, in Michigan, these are going to be very, very competitive battleground states, for the foreseeable future.
Okay. John Anzalone, partner with ALG Research, joining us today on americasdemocrats.org. John, as always, we appreciate your time with us and look forward to having you back again soon.
Thanks so much.
You're quite welcome. And this is americasdemocrats.org, the weekly podcast for stand-up Democrats. We want you to sit back and listen, but we need you to stand up and fight. Help get our party back to its roots and to success at the ballot box. Make your contribution to keep the americasdemocrats.org podcast, a project of 21st Century Democrats, on the air, and help elect stand-up Democrats. Go to americasdemocrats.org and click on Donate at the top of the page. This is americasdemocrats.org, the weekly podcast for stand-up Democrats. And now Bill Press talks with Congressman John Yarmuth of Kentucky.
So good to welcome to the program our good friend from Kentucky's 3rd Congressional District, Congressman John Yarmuth. Hey, Congressman, good to see you.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks for stopping on your way to work.
Happy to be here.
A lot on the agenda today. Lots of bills are going to get passed, and
yeah, right.
Wishful thinking.
Hard keeping up with all of that.
Business as usual.
I know. So, the news of the week is what happened in Georgia with Georgia's 6th, and the idea that, Democrats just can't win in red states. Well, you're living proof that Democrats can.
Well, yeah.
How?
It's possible. I think, first of all, at this level, at a House of Representatives level, this is all about connecting with your constituents, and I think it's a visceral, gut level, personal relationship. It's really not about issues. And what I keep telling my colleagues, I'm in my 11th year now, and I think this is truer now than ever. Politics is all about empathy, and it's not about policy. And Hillary had a lot of brilliant 30-page position papers last year. But I don't think that a large portion of the American people thought she really understood their challenges, their ambitions, their individual situations. And for whatever reason, Trump was able to tap into that. He did provide some sense of empathy. Now, I don't like the instincts that he evoked and the ones that he proposed out there, but I think that's really what politics is all about. And we focus on messaging and on issues, and ultimately, if a voter thinks that you care about their lives and their well-being, and that understand that, it doesn't matter how you vote. Well, I don't think.
Well, that's a very interesting point, and from my experience, I'd say you're absolutely right. The question is, how do people get to know that about you? I mean, how do you telegraph that or broadcast that? I mean, that is part of the messaging, isn't it? Or
Well, absolutely, but it's more the form of the messaging than the actual substance of the messaging. And there's no substitute for retail politics to do that. I'm in a district where I can do that because I'm in a relatively compact district. Mine's a half hour from one end to the other. If I go to the grocery store or to Costco on the weekend and walk through the store, I touch 20, 25, 30 people, and I have great visual identification because I'm on TV and I hit everybody in my district. So it's a little bit easier in a district like mine than if you have 25 counties and your largest town is 12,000 people. And
Sure.
But
a lot of it is getting around, right?
It's getting around. Woody Allen said 80% of life is showing up.
Right.
And I think in politics it's 90%.
I'm thinking, I was just flashing to Senator Grassley from Iowa, whom I think still gets to every one of Iowa's 90 counties every year, and he's in his 80s, right?
Right. Yeah, I think that's the main thing. Now, again, not every district allows you to do that. It's a lot harder in some than others. If you're in Manhattan, and nobody really knows who their member of Congress is because you can represent 20 blocks, and you don't really know all the time where you are, and that's harder. You can't get on television there because there's so many members, and so anyway, the message does matter, but I think the message has to be one of empathy. And, I've been saying this. We have, in the Midwest, we have tens of thousands of Teamsters who are faced with the prospect of having their pensions cut by 60% or more. I didn't hear any candidates out there last year talking about it on our side or any side. Now, I don't know that we have an answer to that. I don't know that we need to have an answer to that.
Why are they getting their pensions?
Because of problems with the Central State Retirement Fund. And I don't know whether it was mismanagement or just economics, whatever. But anyway, so they're in a crisis situation. They're not alone. There are a lot of pension funds are the same situation. So why weren't we out there saying, the idea that somebody could work all their life with an expectation of a certain quality of life in retirement, and that's going to be taken away from that. That's unacceptable in this country, and the government has to make sure that doesn't happen. Again, just showing people we're aware of the issue, we want to work on it. We don't necessarily have to have a position paper to resolve it.
But and that's a real issue that impacts people in real lives.
And even if you're not even if you're not a Teamster, that statement would resonate with anybody who has a retirement plan who worries whether it's actually going to be there for them when they retire.
Right. People are going to be talking and analyzing what happened in Georgia 6 for a long time. But one factor we know is that the Republicans successfully tied John Ossoff to leader Nancy Pelosi and made her, as Peter says, the boogeyman, or the boogie lady, or whatever. Which, knowing Nancy as well as I do, and as long as I have, I find kind of strange, right? But it worked for them. So what do Democrats do about that?
Well, we don't know that it worked. We know that they did it.
We know they did it. Okay. We know they did it, and she won. You're right. We don't know a real cause and effect, but it appered to be.
And we also know that next year, that's what they will do with every one of our candidates.
Every single
everyone, except maybe the ones in California.
Right.
So, but the question is, how many votes does that actually move? And that's something that we really don't know. And I think we ought to determine whether we know it, because if that's the case, the answer may not be replacing that.
How do you do that, through exit polls? Or?
Yeah, I think you can exit poll, and you can just do regular polling, focus groups. The answer may not be replacing Nancy Pelosi. It may be coming up with a counterattack that mitigates that impact. So it's easy to jump on Nancy because, again, everybody tries to tie her, and they've been doing it for years now. This isn't new.
Oh yeah,
and they've done it to me. They've done it to virtually every Democrat. But again, we need to get a better handle on exactly why that, if it's effective, if it moves a lot of votes, why does it do it, and whether there's what the best approach to handling it is.
I think that the whole notion of replacing Nancy Pelosi goes out the door if Democrats start delivering on wins and ideas, and because look, they'll always find somebody to demonize, like you said.
Exactly.
Whether it's Nancy Pelosi or somebody else,
it'll be Chuck Schumer. It'll be whatever. It'll be somebody.
Right.
How do you, or can anyone? What's your take? Let me put it that way, on the fact that $23 million for John Ossoff in Georgia, $277,000 went from the DNC to Archie Parnell in South Carolina,
right?
And he came closer to winning than John Ossoff did.
Well,
and he was totally so totally under the radar that I never even heard his name until the day after the election.
That's right. And actually, that was, as I understand it, that was intentional, that our people thought the best way to have a chance in that race was to keep it under the radar. That if there actually if it looked like that was going to be a competitive race, then the huge dollars would come in, and any chance that Archie might have had would have deteriorated. So that was a calculated move, and not just being cheap.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting, because what it says is the more you're identified with the National Democratic Party in certain districts, certainly, the less likely you are to win.
I think that's absolutely true.
Which is a pretty stunning development at any rate.
Absolutely.
So is there? I'm sure, there must be a lot of gnashing of teeth and pointing of fingers and everything right now about what this means for 2018, and that's really the focus. Does this loss in Georgia? Does this mean Democrats have lost any chance of winning in 2018?
Oh, absolutely not. I think the DCCC rightly points out that there's 70-something districts that are actually better for us than Georgia 6 was. And
districts held by Republicans.
That's right. Yes, thank you.
Understand.
Thank you. Districts held by Republicans. So we've got a very, very wide battlefield, and I think the energy still, we have a huge energy advantage. We know that Republicans are absolutely committing suicide with health care right now, and they're not going to get tax reform done. It doesn't look like. They're going to continue to malfunction in their governing of not just Congress, but also at the congressional level, but also at the White House. So we know things aren't going to get better for them, and we're actively recruiting candidates. We've got more people interested in running in so many of these districts. It's amazing. I mean, where before we might have to really scrounge to get one candidate, now we have 5 or 6 in one district. I think we have 10 people considering running. So that's a blessing and a curse, because you have less control over who your candidate is. But again, the enthusiasm's all there. The money's not going to dry up. We have, I'm on the Progressive Caucus, Congressional Progressive Caucus. We have a PAC, and they're anticipating just a huge increase of just by virtue of what's come in so far for that PAC versus last time. It's astounding, and we're finding that in Canada, in race after race, where people had an event one year and it raised so much, and they had the same event the next year and it raised 3 times as much. Yeah. So I think all the signs are still very, very positive for us next year.
That's all for americasdemocrats.org. Thank you to all who made today's show possible: Vanessa Cardenas, John Anzalone, and the entire Bill Press team. And thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, please get involved in our efforts to keep this show going and to elect Democrats who are bringing the party back to its roots. Go to americasdemocrats.org and click on Donate at the top of the page. And be sure to find 21st Century Democrats on Facebook. For americasdemocrats.org, I'm your host, Jim Cuddy. We want you to sit back and listen, but we need you to stand up and fight. Join us. Support the americasdemocrats.org podcast, a project of 21st Century Democrats, and help elect Democrats who will stand up for democratic principles with your contribution today. Go to americasdemocrats.org and click on Donate at the top of the page.